Okay, class, today we are going to do the globalization, liberalization.
सेशन लाइव है मैम.
Okay, thank you. Okay, class, today we are going to do the globalization, liberalization, and privatization. To start with the globalization first. Let's start with the definition first. What is globalization? The process by which businesses or other organizations develop international influence or start operating on an international scale is known as globalization. So international flows are expected to resume as the COVID-19 outbreak unfolds according to current projection. While many global trade indices have reached a low point in 2020, CEOs are uncovering hints about the future of globalization and its possible consequences on the business by concentrating on few important drivers. So basically, these are the drivers for the growth in the global pattern with So with large economic cycles, the international flows often fluctuate surprisingly. Once the pandemic is under control, true growth can be resumed. The first point is their supply chain policies. So changes in supply chain policies can reorganize trade, although they are currently more focused on job losses than shortages. Second point, a conflict of the power and the weakness. The driver had already halted international trade prior to pandemic. COVID-19, on the other hand, has introduced a few extra layers of complexity. So there has been a substantial increase in the governmental power, necessitating a competition for ideas. This could result in regional divides, but no such divisions have been established. Third, technological advancements. जो COVID-19 is significantly influenced by the technological change, such as the introduction of e-commerce. E-commerce बहुत टाइम से चल रहा है, इवन 2013 से काफी ट्रेंड में है, लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं कोविड-19 में इसका सबसे ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट दिखा है ई-कॉमर्स का, वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग एंड द यूसेज ऑफ आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस. So many leaders are focused on how technology may help minimize global warming prior to the epidemic. So organizations are now evaluating how technological changes will affect their position in relation to competitors, customers, suppliers, and other stakeholders. So basically इस पैंडेमिक में कहीं ना कहीं जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है उन्होंने किस चीज पर ज्यादा फोकस किया, कैसे टेक्नोलॉजिकल चेंजेस में और चेंजेस लाए जाए जिस वजह से पोजीशन जो कॉम्पिटिटर्स है, कस्टमर्स है, सप्लायर्स है, अदर स्टेक होल्डर्स है, उनको इजीली चीजें अवेलेबल हो सके. Next is popular public opinion. The epidemic that is reversing high support for trade and migration may have a negative impact on the public perception of globalization. For the most part, the international level hastens the spread of contagious diseases and economic stress may exacerbate trade security concerns. So that is the popular public opinion. So the epidemic is a globalization problem is that bending but in indestructible, but it will continue to bring economic opportunities and the problems. So ये brief है, wait. Okay. So I told you the name of the book is C.B. Gupta. You can refer. I'm also referring the same book. Okay, from that book, I'm going to discuss the globalization. You can listen carefully. You can write down the important points which am I discussing. Gate बंद करके जाना. I don't know. Okay, so there is a very good definition by IMF. IMF, International Monetary Fund. Everybody knows about that. So globalization means the growing economic interdependence of countries through increasing volume and variety of cross-border transactions in goods and services and international capital flows and through rapid and widespread diffusion of the technology. This is the definition given by the IMF. Again, I'm repeating, globalization means the growing economic interdependence of countries worldwide through increasing volume and variety of cross-border transactions. Globalization का मतलब क्या है? Cross-border transactions in goods and services and of international capital flows. Obviously, जब goods and services का exchange हो रहा है between countries, तो capital का inflow और outflow हो रहा है through the rapid and the widespread diffusion of the technology. और ये किसकी help से हो रहा है? With the diffusion of the technology. That is the best definition of the globalization by IMF. ओके सो अगर हम इसकी फीचर्स की बात करें सो डेफिनेशन से ही फीचर्स निकल रहे हैं कहीं ना कहीं द फर्स्ट फीचर इज दैट रिडक्शन ऑफ ट्रेड बैरियर्स so as to ensure free flow of goods and services across national frontier. The first point जो भी हमने डेफिनेशन में डिस्कस किया. सेकंड, free flow of capital can take place among nations. इजी है ऑब्वियसली जब गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज का इनफ्लो और आउटफ्लो है तो कैपिटल का आउटफ्लो इनफ्लो होगा. थर्ड फीचर इज creation of an environment which permits free flow of technology between nations. Obviously बात है टेक्नोलॉजी का भी फ्री फ्लो हो रहा है between nations due to globalization. Fourth feature, creation of environment in which free movement of labor can take place in different countries of the world. You know, people are moving to abroad and even बाहर के लोग भी हमारे देशों में आ रहे हैं तो ये क्या है कहीं ना कहीं फ्री मूवमेंट ऑफ लेबर कैन टेक्स प्लेस ड्यू टू दी globalization. And the fifth feature is creation of a global mechanism for the settlement of economic disputes between various countries. कहीं ना कहीं जितना ये पहले जो हमारा इतना डिस्प्यूट्स था कंट्रीज के बीच में जो सेटलमेंट हुआ है जो मैकेनिज्म आया है जस्ट ओनली बिकॉज ऑफ ग्लोबलाइजेशन. So these are the features of the globalization. Now we are moving to the advantages of globalization. So here are the advantages of the globalization. So globalization is a process that has several advantages. It is a process that contributes significantly to the development and the growth of a nation. Here are some of the benefits of the globalization. So first advantage is what? Employment. The establishment of special economic zones has increased the number of jobs available. There are export processing units established all over the world which have helped employ thousands of peoples, and the multinational companies of the West have been providing employment opportunities to the people by outsourcing employing. So कहीं ना कहीं ग्लोबलाइजेशन की वजह से एम्प्लॉयमेंट बढ़ा है सबसे बड़ा एडवांटेज है इसका. सेकंड, compensation. There has been an increase in the level and the amount of payment compared to the domestic companies. The main reason for this is that domestic or home companies lack skill and knowledge compared to the multinational companies. कहीं ना कहीं जो डोमेस्टिक कंपनीज है ना उसके पास जो स्किल है वो कहीं ना कहीं मल्टीनेशनल से लैग करता है. सो एन इंक्रीज इन द कॉम्पनसेशन इज लीडिंग टू चेंजेस इन द मैनेजमेंट स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द कंपनीज टू. तो कहने की कंपनसेशन की इंक्रीज ने मैनेजमेंट स्ट्रक्चर जो है कंपनीज का उसमें चेंजेस लेके आया है. सो कॉम्पनसेशन का बहुत बड़ा इम्पैक्ट रहा है ग्लोबलाइजेशन के ऊपर. नेक्स्ट, स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग. With the emergence of globalization, there has been a change in the people's standard of living. The difference in the purchasing power of the people has increased the standards of living. Therefore, evolution in the development of business have raised the standards of living of the people. कहीं ना कहीं ग्लोबलाइजेशन की वजह से ना जो हम लोगों ने बोला क्रॉस बॉर्डर ट्रांजेक्शन्स जो हुई हैं, जो क्रॉस बॉर्डर नेशंस के बीच में जो गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज एक्सचेंज हुआ है, तो इस वजह से कहीं ना कहीं काफी जो चीजें हैं वो कंट्री में नहीं आई हैं. तो उन चीजों के पीछे कहीं ना कहीं शो ऑफ को लेकर तो लोगों का जो लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड है वो कहीं ना कहीं बहुत ज्यादा इफेक्ट हुआ है. तो इस स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग को इंक्रीज करने के लिए उनका कहीं ना कहीं परचेजिंग पैटर्न इफेक्ट कर रहा है. तो जो उनका परचेजिंग पैटर्न इफेक्ट हो रहा है, इस वजह से जो डेवलपमेंट है बिजनेस की वो रेज हो रही है एंड ऑटोमेटिकली स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग इंक्रीज हो रहा है एंड ग्लोबलाइजेशन का इसका सबसे बड़ा इम्पैक्ट है. विद द इमर्जेंस ऑफ द ग्लोबलाइजेशन देयर हैज बीन चेंज इन द लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ द लिविंग ऑफ द पीपल. एंड थर्ड बात देखा जाए तो इसमें कहीं ना कहीं इंक्रीज इन्वेस्टमेंट. कि ग्लोबलाइजेशन ने क्या किया है, कहीं ना कहीं इंक्रीज इन द क्रॉस बॉर्डर इन्वेस्टमेंट. पीपल कहीं ना कहीं बहुत ज्यादा इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं over the country. This has led to the companies investing in the opening branches in different countries across the globe. काफी MNCs हैं जो अपने branches खोल रही हैं क्रॉस बॉर्डर यानी डिफरेंट कंट्रीज में. एंड द इंक्रीज इन द इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑल्सो अक्रॉस द बॉर्डर्स हैज एनहांस्ड द वेलफेयर ऑफ बोथ द कंट्रीज. सो दिस इज द इंक्रीज इन्वेस्टमेंट. नेक्स्ट, next are the development of infrastructure. कि technological advancement has developed, improved the infrastructure of the countries. With the help of the technology, the countries are achieving overall development. And foreign exchange reserve की बात करें तो with the help of the globalization, there is a constant flow of capital in the international financial flows. And this capital flows help countries build foreign exchange reserves. So these are the basic advantages of the globalization. और देखा जाए तो एक और एडवांटेज है उसका हायर वॉल्यूम ऑफ ट्रेड. कि ड्यू टू ग्लोबलाइजेशन each country can specialize in the production of goods and services in which it has a competitive advantage, so it can export its surplus output and import necessary items freely from other nations. This will lead not only to phenomenal increase in the world trade but also to better allocation and utilization of resources in each country. So ये था आपका higher volume of trade. Next आता है what are the types of globalization. There are three types of globalization. First is economic globalization. In this type of globalization, countries aim to integrate international financial markets and coordinate monetary exchange. Multinational corporations that operate in more than two countries play an essential role in a nation's economic globalization. Economic globalization is the North American Free Trade Agreement, जिसको बोलते हैं नाफ्ता. ये हम लोगों ने 12th स्टैंडर्ड में भी पढ़ा था. An economic agreement between the United States, Canada and Mexico. Canada and Mexico. Second आता है आपका political globalization. This is globalization that refers to nations' policies that aims at bringing it closer to other nations politically and economically. So political globalization helps build a bond between countries with each other. Some examples of political globalization are North Atlantic Trade Organization, NATO and UN, United Nations. Third are the cultural globalization. In this type of globalization, the focus is on the technological and societal factors which bring people together. Cultural organization includes ease of communication, social media, and access to faster and the better transportation. So ये थे आपके types of globalization. You can take screenshot over here. So next है आपका अगर हम ग्लोबलाइजेशन के इम्पैक्ट की बात करें तो मैंने अभी आपको एडवांटेजेस डिस्कस किए. यू कैन गो थ्रू दैट और वहां से पॉइंट्स निकाल सकते हो. बाकी आई एम रीडिंग दैट कि व्हाट इज द इम्पैक्ट ऑफ ग्लोबलाइजेशन. देयर हैज बीन अ ट्रेमेंडस इम्पैक्ट ऑफ ग्लोबलाइजेशन ऑन एवरीवन, people, communities, and institutions. Everyone locally and globally has felt the touch of globalization, not only in their lives but in society too. There are there are myriad ways in which one may feel the impact of globalization on one's life. Individuals get impacted by the globalization regularly in the clothes they wear, the music they listen to, the gadgets they use, the cars they drive, and so much more. So, several international influences affect the ordinary lives of the people in such little ways that it is harder to render anymore. It moves what they like to purchase, eat, and it also reflects the standard of living overall. So, additionally, it affects their decisions like where to travel, how to travel, whether you are talking about intercity, interstate, or even international travel. So, globalization has made everything in all of our lives so much easier than it was even a few years ago. जो कई साल पहले से कहीं ना कहीं इतना इजी हो गया है ग्लोबलाइजेशन की वजह से सारी चीजें. कहीं भी आप इजीली ट्रैवल कर सकते हो, कोई भी गैजेट चूज कर सकते हो, कोई भी कार यू कैन ड्राइव, जो म्यूजिक आपको सुनना है, जो आपको वेयर करना है, कहीं ना कहीं आपकी स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग को पूरी तरह बदल दिया ग्लोबलाइजेशन ने. नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ. Another group where there is an impact of globalization are communities. अगर communities की बात करें, so there is a significant impact of the globalization on the communities locally, regionally, and internationally. It includes the effects of globalization on organizations, businesses, and economies. The variety of products available today is countless and even unbelievable to an extent. This creates a vast marketplace for both sellers and the customers, and this is how globalization plays a vital role in expanding the economy. So कहीं ना कहीं जो मैंने आपको बोला कि variety of products are available today, which are countless, मतलब countless even unbelievable to an extent. It creates a vast marketplace, even both seller के लिए भी और customer के लिए. In this way, कहीं ना कहीं globalization ने play किया vital role in expanding the economy, and there's a greater impact of the globalization on the communities. Third आता है आपका globalization affects people who are a part of the community in every aspect, like where they work, who they work for, and moving around the world. So it changes the way local cultures develop all around the world. In this वर्स ने people पे impact डाला है. Okay. So what we must remember is that ki globalization is not only concrete, meaning that it doesn't only impact the circulation of goods and services floating in the economy and being made available to customers. मतलब वो क्या कह रहे हैं, ग्लोबलाइजेशन का मतलब सिर्फ ये नहीं है कि गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज का फ्लोट हो रहा है इकोनॉमी में, बट कस्टमर्स को भी इजिली अवेलेबल हो रहा है. So there is such a thing as globalization of the intellect, where progressive values, often deemed Western values, are also exchanged. This, in fact, works both ways, where we traditional and backward values be replaced with more progressive ones as the world progresses further. So, on the other hand, several Western cultures are also becoming more and more affiliated with those of the East, such as in manners of sustainability and sustainable practices of the olden Eastern times. तो ये था आपका इम्पैक्ट. नेक्स्ट आता है आपका इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ ग्लोबलाइजेशन. अगर हम इंडिया के एक्सपीरियंस की बात करें विद द ग्लोबलाइजेशन, you can write down the points if you are listening. The very first point is the import liberalization. The first point is import liberalization. ये इंडिया का एक्सपीरियंस लिखवा रही हूँ मैं विद ग्लोबलाइजेशन कि क्वांटिटेटिव रिस्ट्रिक्शंस, बस पॉइंट लिख सकते हो हम, एक्सप्लेन मैं कर रही हूँ. Quantitative restrictions such as import licenses and quotas have been phased out. Under the new foreign trade policy, most imports have been put under open general license (OGL list), wherein automatic permission is granted to import goods. Now import license is necessary for very few items. Now quantitative restrictions on a large number of export items have also been removed due to the globalization. Or even several items of the imports have been decanalized. So this is the imports liberalization. Second point is rationalization of tariff structure. नेक्स्ट है आपका रैशनलाइजेशन ऑफ टैरिफ स्ट्रक्चर. अगर रैशनलाइजेशन की बात करें तो जो स्ट्रक्चर और पैटर्न है ऑफ कस्टम ड्यूटीज लेवाइड ऑन द इंपोर्ट ऑफ द डिफरेंट कमोडिटीज known as tariff structure had become very complex over the years. Since 1991, the peak tariff has been reduced substantially and the tariff structure have been rationalized. These reforms in trade policy seek to make Indian goods competitive in the world market. So cheaper import of raw materials will help to reduce cost of production and improve the quality. So low cost and high quality products will enable Indian exporters to compete with foreign goods and thereby increase the country's exports. Third, reforms in foreign exchange management. The third point is reforms in our foreign exchange management. Before 1991, Government of India exercised strict control over foreign exchange. Under the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act (FERA), FERA, all Indian exporters had to surrender their foreign exchange earnings to the Reserve Bank of India. They were given in return Indian rupee at a fixed exchange rate. In 1999, the government abolished FERA and enacted Foreign Exchange Management (FEMA) to promote foreign trade. Under the new exchange management system, the value of the rupee is determined by the market forces of demand and supply. Everybody knows. कहीं ना कहीं जो हमारी रुपये की वैल्यू कैसे डिटरमिन होती है, मार्केट फोर्सेस ऑफ डिमांड एंड सप्लाई से. So exporters are free to sell their foreign currency in the open market and importers can freely buy it from the open market. So thus Indian rupee has been made freely convertible so as to boost the country's exports. So these are the reforms in the foreign exchange management. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट की बात करें तो रिफॉर्म्स इन द फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट, ये हमने पढ़ा था फॉरेन एक्सचेंज मैनेजमेंट। नाउ रिफॉर्म्स इन फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट, एफडीआई जिसको बोलते हैं। नाउ 100% फॉरेन इक्विटी इज अलाउड इन मेनी कंट्रीज, ठीक है, कि कहीं ना कहीं आज के टाइम में फॉरेन इक्विटी जो है 100% अलाउड है काफी इंडस्ट्रीज में, ठीक है। लेकिन इन सच केसेस अपर लिमिट जो है फॉर फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट हैज बीन रेज्ड फ्रॉम 40 to 74%, and automatic permission is given to foreign technology agreements in the high priority industries. Import of capital goods also gets automatic approval in case the foreign exchange required for such import is received through foreign equity. So these are the reforms in the foreign direct investment. And the last is the capital market reforms. कि जो major reforms in the capital market are as follows. The first is जो Capital Issues Act था 1947 has been repealed. Indian companies face bureaucratic delays in the issue of the security due to this act, and the listing of the companies on the stock exchange has been liberalized. So ये थे आपकी importance of the globalization. नेक्स्ट आता है आपका लिबरलाइजेशन। Okay, so start with the meaning. What is liberalization? Liberalization is the process or means of the elimination of control of the state over the economic activities. It provides a greater autonomy to the business enterprises in deciding in decision making and eliminates government interferences. So, kind of liberalization was begin to put an end to these limitations and open multiple areas of the economy. Though some liberalization proposals were prefaced in the 1980s in the area of import-export policy, technology upgradation, fiscal policy, foreign investment, industrial licensing, and economic reforms policies launched in 1991 were more general. So there are few significant areas, namely the financial sector हुआ, industrial sector हुआ, foreign exchange market हुआ, tax reforms हुए, even investment or trade sectors has gained recognition in and after 1991. So this is liberalization. Basically अगर इसको एक लाइन में समझा तो liberalization का मतलब ये होता है elimination of the control of the state over economic activity. कि कहीं ना कहीं जो काफी सारे हमारे पास बर्डन से काफी कंट्रोल से उनको एलिमिनेट करना इज द लिबरलाइजेशन, ठीक है। अगर जैसे मैंने आपको लिखवाया था अभी पॉइंट्स बताए थे कि ग्लोबलाइजेशन का क्या एक्सपीरियंस रहा है इंडिया में, ऐसे लिबरलाइजेशन इंडिया में बता रही हूँ आपको। Since the adoption of the new economic strategy in 1991, there has been a drastic change in the Indian economy. With the arrival of liberalization, the government has regulated the private sector organization to conduct business transaction with the fewer restrictions. So for the developing countries, liberalization has opened economic borders to foreign companies and investment. Earlier, the investors had to encounter difficulties to enter countries with many barriers. So these barriers include tax laws, foreign investment restrictions, accounting regulations, and legal issues. So economic liberalization reduced all these obstacles and waived few restrictions over the control of the economy to the private sector. So this is the liberalization in India. Now the topic is objectives क्या है liberalization के. क्यों लिबरलाइजेशन करना पड़ा इन 1991 में? टू बूस्ट कंपटीशन बिटवीन डोमेस्टिक बिजनेसेस, ताकि डोमेस्टिक बिजनेसेस के बीच में भी कंपटीशन बूस्ट हो सके. सेकेंड, टू प्रमोट फॉरेन ट्रेड एंड रेगुलेट इंपोर्ट्स एंड एक्सपोर्ट. फॉरेन ट्रेड को प्रमोट किया जा सके और रेगुलेट किया जा सके इंपोर्ट्स और एक्सपोर्ट्स को. थर्ड, टू इम्प्रूव द टेक्नोलॉजी एंड द फॉरेन कैपिटल and to develop a global market of a country, to reduce the debt burden of a country, to unlock the economic potential of the country by encouraging the private sector and the multinational corporations to invest and expand, ताकि encourage किया जा सके private sector को to take an active part in the development process, to reduce the role of the public sector in the future industrial development, and to introduce more competition in the economy with the aim of increasing efficiency. So these are the basically objectives of the liberalization. अगर हम रिफॉर्म्स की बात करें अंडर लिबरलाइजेशन इज, फर्स्ट हुआ हमारा डीरेगुलेशन ऑफ द इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर, सेकंड हुआ फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर रिफॉर्म्स, थर्ड टैक्स रिफॉर्म्स, फोर्थ फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिफॉर्म्स, फिफ्थ ट्रेड एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट पॉलिसी रिफॉर्म्स, 6 external sector reforms, 7 foreign exchange reforms, 8 foreign trade policy reforms. So ये थे reforms under the liberalization. तो नेक्स्ट टॉपिक है आपका इम्पैक्ट ऑफ लिबरलाइजेशन. देखो हर चीज के ना प्रोज और कॉन्स होते हैं, मतलब ये नहीं कि हर चीज पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट लाती है, नेगेटिव साथ में आता है. सो प्रोज एंड कॉन्स का मतलब यही होता है. सो अगर हम इम्पैक्ट की बात करें लिबरलाइजेशन के, तो पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट की बात करते हैं पहले. द फर्स्ट फ्री फ्लो ऑफ कैपिटल हुआ कि लिबरलाइजेशन हैज एनहांस्ड द फ्री फ्लो ऑफ कैपिटल बाय मेकिंग इट अफोर्डेबल फॉर द बिजनेसेस to reach the capital from investors and take a profitable project. Second, diversity for investors. Investors will be benefited by investing a portion of their businesses into a diversifying asset class. Third point की बात करें तो impact on agriculture. In this area, जो cropping designs have experienced a huge change. But the impact of liberalization cannot be accurately measured. So government restrictions and interventions can be seen from the production to the distribution of the crops. So these are the positive impacts of the liberalization in the India. अब बात करते हैं कि नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट क्या हुआ लिबरलाइजेशन का इंडिया में. नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट की बात करें तो फर्स्ट इम्पैक्ट जो है नेगेटिव, द वीकनिंग ऑफ द इकोनॉमी. An enormous restoration of the political power and the economic power will lead to weakening the entire Indian economy. Second, technological impact. Fast development in technology allows many small-scale industries and other businesses in India to either adjust to changes or shut their businesses. थर्ड पॉइंट की बात करें तो mergers and acquisitions. Key here, the small businesses merge with the big companies. Therefore, the employees of the small companies may need to enhance their skills and become technologically advanced. So this enhancing of skills and the time it might take may lead to non-productivity and can be a burden to the company's capital. So 3 points जो थे कहीं ना कहीं negative impact of the liberalization in the India. Next, India का liberalization. अगर नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट की बात करें, देयर आर 2 or 3 पॉइंट्स आर मोर कि जो डिमांड है फॉर द कैपिटल गुड्स हैव बीन स्लगिश and industrial sickness is on the rise. Next, Indian economy has become more sensitive to ups and downs abroad. Indian rupee in terms of foreign currency has become volatile, and rates of savings and investment are stagnant for many years, and exports are not growing as per the expectations. So mass retrenchment due to the closure of the industrial units and technology upgradation is causing social unrest. So these are few points which are the negative impact on the liberalization. So ये था आपका सारा liberalization. Next topic we are discussing is privatization. अगर हम प्राइवेटाइजेशन की बात करें तो डेफिनेशन इज प्राइवेटाइजेशन का मतलब होता है इट मीन्स द ट्रांसफर ऑफ ओनरशिप मैनेजमेंट एंड कंट्रोल ऑफ द पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइज टू द प्राइवेट सेक्टर. देखो तो नाम से ही जस्टिफाई है प्राइवेटाइजेशन कि प्राइवेट की तरफ पीपल मूव कर रहे हैं. कैसे कंपनी जो है वो प्राइवेट होती जा रही है, दैट इज प्राइवेटाइजेशन. तो कैसे हो रही है कि कहीं ना कहीं ओनरशिप मैनेजमेंट और जो कंट्रोल है पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस का वो ट्रांसफर करना प्राइवेट सेक्टर में इज कॉल्ड द प्राइवेटाइजेशन. ठीक है. So privatization can suggest several things, including the migration of something from the public sector to the private sector. It is also used as a metonym for deregulation when a massively regulated private firm or industry becomes less organized. So government services and operations may be denationalized, that is privatized. So in these circumstances, जो private entities are tasked with the application of government plans or the execution of the government assistance that has earlier been the vision of state-run companies. Some instances involve law enforcement, revenue collection, and the prison management. So privatization of the public sector companies by selling off parts of the equity of PSEs, any public sector enterprises, to the public is known as the disinvestment. That is disinvestment. So next topic is objectives of the privatization. कि privatization के objectives क्या हैं? First is providing strong momentum for the inflow of the FDI. कि privatization aims at providing a strong base for the inflow of the FDI. The increased inflow of FDI improves the financial strength of the economy. Second, improving the efficiency of the public sector undertakings, PSUs. So the efficiency of the PSUs is improved by giving them the autonomy to make decisions. Even some companies were given special categories of this Navratan and Mini Ratan. And there are some other objectives are there. Wait. कहीं ना कहीं जो लो प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी थी ना पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस की में ऑल्सो बी ड्यू टू द कॉन्सेंट्रेशन द सोशल ऑब्जेक्टिव द पॉलिटिकल इंटरफेरेंस इन द वर्किंग ऑफ द पब्लिक एंटरप्राइजेस that transferring of public units to the private sector will go against the goal of the socialist pattern of the society. So due to these reasons, there is need of the privatization. So these are the objectives of the privatization. Next topic is ways of privatization. जैसे कि मैंने आपको ऊपर डिस्कस किया, ट्रांसफर ऑफ द ओनरशिप, transfer of management, transfer of the control of the public sector enterprises to the private sector is the privatization. तो वही ways है इसके. The first is the transfer of ownership. अब transfer of ownership कैसे कर सकते हैं? By the withdrawal of the government from the ownership and the management of the public sector company. Second, by the outright sale of the public sector कंपनी। सेकंड तरीका क्या है प्राइवेटाइजेशन का? डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट। डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट जो मैंने ऊपर डिस्कस किया कि जो प्राइवेटाइजेशन है ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग बाय सेलिंग ऑफ पार्ट्स ऑफ द इक्विटी ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर undertakings to the private sector is known as disinvestment. And the purpose of the sale is mainly to improve the financial discipline and facilitate modernization. So these are the ways of the privatization. So as I discussed, there are always pros and cons. So for what are the pros of the privatization? The first is improved performance and the customer experience. Second, politics doesn't interfere. Third, short-term outlook. Encouragement for shareholders to invest because of the returns. Increased competition. And government will increase the revenue from the sale. कहीं ना कहीं प्राइवेटाइजेशन से गवर्नमेंट को भी फायदा है, क्योंकि प्राइवेटाइजेशन का जो रेवेन्यू है वो कहीं ना कहीं जो प्राइवेटाइजेशन की जो सेल है कहीं ना कहीं गवर्नमेंट की रेवेन्यू को कहीं ना कहीं इफेक्ट करती है और कहीं ना कहीं इंक्रीज करती है. सो दीज आर द प्रोज ऑफ द लिबरलाइजेशन. अब हम बात करें कॉन्स की, व्हाट आर द नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट्स एंड फेलियर्स ऑफ द प्राइवेटाइजेशन. So first is privatization of the public sector will defeat the social purposes for which public enterprises were set up. जो social goals including upliftment of weaker sections, balanced regional development, self-sufficiency in defense requirement, etc. Second, low profitability of the public enterprises may also be due to the concentration on the social objectives and the political interference in the working of the public enterprises. थर्ड पॉइंट की बात करें तो ट्रांसफरेबिलिटी ऑफ द पब्लिक यूनिट्स टू द प्राइवेट सेक्टर विल गो अगेंस्ट द गोल ऑफ द सोशलिस्ट पैटर्न ऑफ द सोसाइटी. फोर्थ पॉइंट, इट मे लीड टू द concentration of the economic power and greater inequalities in the distribution of the income and wealth. And public sector is an important check against the monopoly power of the private sector. If the public sector is eliminated, the private enterprises may exploit the workers and the consumers. And there is no guarantee that transfer of sick public units to the private sector will make them viable. And the last disadvantage is that trade unions and the bureaucrats strongly oppose the privatization. Now, so ये थे आपके disadvantages of the privatization, cons of the privatization. ओके अगर हम फीचर्स की बात करें प्राइवेटाइजेशन की, अगेन फ्रॉम डेफिनेशन से निकाल सकते हैं. फर्स्ट इज व्हाट? ट्रांसफर ऑफ ओनरशिप. इन प्राइवेटाइजेशन जो ओनरशिप है ऑफ कंपनी, अंडरटेकिंग और प्रॉपर्टी इज ट्रांसफर टू द प्राइवेट सेक्टर. फर्स्ट पॉइंट. सेकंड, लैक ऑफ गवर्नमेंट इंटरफेरेंस. जो प्राइवेटाइजेशन है ऑब्वियसली बात है गवर्नमेंट का इंटरफेरेंस कम होगा यहाँ पे, तो प्राइवेटाइजेशन रिड्यूसेस इंडल्ज एंड द इंटरफेरेंस ऑफ द स्टेट इन द एक्टिविटीज ऑफ अ कंपनी. थर्ड पॉइंट की बात करें दैट इज इकोनॉमिक डेमोक्रेसी, कि जो प्राइवेटाइजेशन है dilute state monopoly and allow private companies to participate in the economic activities more democratically. So these are the features of the privatization. Objectives we have done, ways we have done. Okay, what are the methods of the privatization? The first method is, there are 5 methods to privatize a company. The first is public auction. कि public auctions are held with the motive of raising the highest amount of a government-owned property. Shares of a public company or long-term assets can be auctioned through this route. First method is public auction. Second method is sale of shares. जो equity shares हैं of a public sector company or undertaking can be sold through stock exchange for privatization. The state hands over complete authority of an organization's economic activities through a public sale of the shares. थर्ड पॉइंट की बात करें तो डायरेक्ट नेगोशिएशंस कि when the government enters into dealing with specific private bodies for carrying out the privatization of state owned property, this is called direct negotiation. Direct negotiations are potentially more beneficial for participating bodies as both the seller and the purchaser are present and agree on the necessary and the advantageous stipulations. So fourth point is public tender. It refers to a contract issued to attract offers from interested procurers. A tender is essentially like an auction where the bidder with the most lucrative offer procures it, and the process that follows public tender for the privatization of the government property is similar to the direct negotiations. So except in the direct negotiation, there are already selected purchasers who can participate in the dealing. Or in a public auction, there are no such provisions. And the last method of privatization is lease with the right to purchase. Lease with the right to purchase. Under this method, a private company only assumes possession and uses of a state-run company or undertaking by meeting certain criteria. The private company can later choose to exercise the option to convert the lease of a property to ownership by paying the necessary sum and following certain stipulations. So this is the lease with a right to purchase. So there are two examples of privatization in India कि privatization हुआ था भारत एल्यूमिनियम कंपनी का इन 2005 में, privatization हुआ of Delhi and Mumbai airports in 2006. So basically conclusion की बात करें तो privatization in India is an important step towards the strong growth of a country and good governance. With the pandemic, more responsibility is retained with the government for taking the privatization process in the right direction and also captivating good outcomes. So privatization process also enhances economic status. Although public sector units have contributed to the development of the country, they have a lot of shortcomings. The process of privatization has both, as I've discussed, pros and cons. Government should adopt complete and partial privatization to enhance efficiency. But at the same time, social justice is equally important and must not be ignored with while introducing the reforms. So ये था आपका सारा privatization. Now, अगर हम बात करें the difference between the globalization and the liberalization, the last topic, you can see this difference between the globalization and the liberalization. See, the difference between the globalization and liberalization. अगर ग्लोबलाइजेशन देखा जाता है इज क्लोजली रिलेटेड टू द स्केल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज अक्रॉस द नेशन और लिबरलाइजेशन इज मेनली कंसंट्रेटेड ऑन द इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ मॉडर्नाइजेशन एंड डेवलपमेंट. और अगर ग्लोबलाइजेशन की बात करें तो इन ग्लोबलाइजेशन सेटअप localities develop direct economic and the cultural relationships to the global system through information technologies, bypassing and subverting traditional power hierarchies like national governments and markets. और liberalization की बात करें, it also often involves reduction in taxes, social security and unemployment benefits. ग्लोबलाइजेशन की बात करें तो इसकी वजह से एक्सेस हुआ टू न्यू कल्चर, लोअर कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्ट्स, एक्सेस टू न्यू टैलेंट. वहीं लिबरलाइजेशन की बात करें तो इनवर्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट, increased competition will lead to a rise in the quality goods for the consumers. So globalization की बात करें तो there are chances of developing nations being open to exploitation by advanced economy. और प्राइवेटाइज लिबरलाइजेशन की बात करें तो लॉस ऑफ डोमेस्टिक यूनिट्स ड्यू टू द इनफ्लो ऑफ द फॉरेन गुड्स. अगेन ग्लोबलाइजेशन में एडवर्स इफेक्ट्स ऑन लोकल इकोनॉमीज, देयर इज अनबैलेंस्ड इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट, देयर आर कल्चरल homogenization and there is increased dependency on the foreign assistance. So in globalization it can be tracked back to the days of the Indus Valley civilization, where relation between different nations were shaped by the geographical spread of ideas and the social norms at local and the regional level. और अगर लिबरलाइजेशन की बात करें, although early forms of liberalization was practiced by merchant states of the 15th century such as Venice, liberalization in their modern form can be traced after World War II. In India, the process of liberalization was initiated through the economic reforms of 1991 by the Prime Minister that time, P.V. Narasimha Rao, and then Finance Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. So, this is the difference between the globalization and the liberalization. Okay, so the last difference is the difference between the liberalization and the privatization. This is the last topic today. लिबरलाइजेशन एंड प्राइवेटाइजेशन में क्या डिफरेंस है? अभी हम लोगों ने डिस्कस किया था ग्लोबलाइजेशन और लिबरलाइजेशन में क्या डिफरेंस है. नाउ वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस लिबरलाइजेशन प्राइवेटाइजेशन में क्या डिफरेंस है. That it is the removal and loosening of restrictions on something, typically on economic and political system. ये definition है. Privatization में भी ये definition है कि privatization the process of transferring an enterprise or industry from the public sector to the private sector. The first point is definition जो अभी हमने ऊपर डिस्कस की. Second is liberalization is the relaxation of the government restrictions in areas of economic policy. Removal of restriction basically मतलब relaxation of the government restrictions. और privatization की बात करें तो privatization is the opening of an industry that has been reserved for the public sector to the private sector. Third point है difference का कि liberalization helps to increase foreign investment and कंजप्शन एंड कंट्रोल ओवर प्राइस। प्राइवेटाइजेशन की बात करें वहीं पर, तो प्राइवेटाइजेशन हेल्प्स इन इंक्रीजिंग एफिशिएंसी एंड प्रोफेशनल मैनेजमेंट। अगर फोर्थ पॉइंट डिस्कस करें लिबरलाइजेशन का, तो लिबरलाइजेशन हेल्प्स इन रिड्यूसिंग टैक्स रेट्स, लिफ्ट्स अननेसेसरी कंट्रोल्स ओवर द इकोनॉमी। और वहीं प्राइवेटाइजेशन की बात करें तो प्राइवेटाइजेशन improves financial discipline and facilitate modernization. And the last point is differences. Liberalization helps in reduction in dependence on the external commercial borrowing. कि जो हमारा डिपेंडेंस था एक्सटर्नल कमर्शियल बोरोइंग पर, लिबरलाइजेशन की वजह से वो रिड्यूस हुआ है। और प्राइवेटाइजेशन हेल्प्स इन रिडक्शन इन द इकोनॉमिक बर्डन ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट, कि प्राइवेटाइजेशन ने कहीं ना कहीं गवर्नमेंट के इकोनॉमिक बर्डन को रिड्यूस किया, क्योंकि प्राइवेटाइजेशन से जितनी सेल इंक्रीज हो रही है उससे गवर्नमेंट का रेवेन्यू इंक्रीज हो रहा है, तो इट हेल्प्स इन रिड्यूसिंग द इकोनॉमिक बर्डन ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट। सो ये था आपका difference between liberalization and the privatization. You can take screenshot of that. Let me take in the one page. Yes, you can take screenshot now. So today आज हम लोगों ने क्या डिस्कस किया? ग्लोबलाइजेशन डिस्कस किया, उसके एडवांटेजेस, उसके डिसएडवांटेजेस, उसके ऑब्जेक्टिव्स, उसका एक्सपीरियंस क्या है इंडिया में, और उसकी डेफिनेशन। 5 टॉपिक्स वी डिस्कस इन द ग्लोबलाइजेशन। अगेन सेकंड हमने डिस्कस किया लिबरलाइजेशन, लिबरलाइजेशन की डेफिनेशन, उसके फीचर्स, उसके एडवांटेजेस, उसके डिसएडवांटेजेस और उसका एक्सपीरियंस क्या रहा है इंडिया में। थर्ड टॉपिक हमने डिस्कस किया प्राइवेटाइजेशन, प्राइवेटाइजेशन की डेफिनेशन डिस्कस की, उसके फीचर्स, उसके प्रॉज, उसके कॉन्स, उसका क्या इम्पैक्ट रहा है इंडिया पे। एंड लास्ट फिर हमने डिस्कस 15 टॉपिक्स वी हैव डिस्कस दैट, एंड 2 टॉपिक्स वी हैव डिस्कस द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द ग्लोबलाइजेशन एंड द लिबरलाइजेशन, and 17th topic we have discussed is difference between the liberalization and the privatization, जो भी आपके सामने स्क्रीन पे है, इसका आप स्क्रीनशॉट ले सकते हैं। So today we have discussed the 17 topics. Okay, so rest we'll discuss in the next class. Now you can leave the class.
हेलो,
हाँ जी सर।
सेशन एंड कर दो मैम।
यस, कर दीजिए।
थैंक यू मैम।
वेलकम, बाय।